October 14, 1957. 11:42 p.m. Harlem, a back room above a Lenox Avenue bar. The click of a lighter cut the room in half. Bumpy Johnson didn't turn. He didn't need to. The sound told him everything. Someone wanted to be seen, not heard. That was the mistake. Behind him, the man he trusted longest stood too close to the door. Too close meant ready to leave fast. The lighter snapped shut. Silence took over. That silence wasn't empty. It pressed. Bumpy said nothing. The trusted man cleared his throat. One word would have been safer. He chose 3. We should talk. Cold metal brushed Bumpy's palm under the table. Not a gun. A key. Old, heavy, worn smooth by years of turning the same lock. This detail will matter soon. Across the room, the visitor waited. Imported suit. City shoes still clean. He didn't belong north of 125th, and everyone knew it. A Mafia boss from downtown, sent uptown to remind Harlem who owned the calendar. He smiled like the meeting was already over. Bumpy finally turned his head. Not his shoulders. Just enough. You're late, Bumpy said. The visitor shrugged. Traffic. 8 letters. He thought they weighed the same as the room. The trusted man shifted. His hands shook once, then steadied. That steadiness was worse. Shaking meant fear. Stillness meant decision. Bumpy watched the visitor's eyes, not his mouth. The eyes kept checking the door. Not for escape. For timing. Bumpy understood then. This wasn't a meeting. It was a handoff. He didn't know this moment would rewrite everything. How? We'll get to that. The visitor leaned forward. The chair legs scraped. One sound. One signal. Power announcing itself. You disrespected someone important, the visitor said. That's fixable. Bumpy nodded. Everything is. The trusted man swallowed. Sweat darkened the collar at his neck. Smell of fear, sharp and sour. One sense. Enough. The visitor continued. You apologize. You pay. Harlem stays quiet. Bumpy tapped the key once against the table. A soft ring. Not a threat. A reminder. To who? He asked. The visitor smiled wider. That smile was the fatal mistake. He thought the room was small. He thought the question was simple. To us, the visitor said. The trusted man finally spoke. Bumpy, it's business. 9 letters. Another mistake. Bumpy stood. Slowly. Standing changes the air without saying a word. He adjusted his jacket. No rush. Rush belonged to people without options. He looked at the trusted man now. Really looked. 20 years of nights. 20 years of doors opened, favors done, warnings delivered. Loyalty built on proximity, not principle. That was the crack. You told him where, Bumpy said. The trusted man opened his mouth. Closed it. Silence answered. Knowledge loop closed. Another opened. The visitor laughed once. See? Clean. Bumpy stepped closer to the trusted man. Not touching. Distance can hurt more. The man's eyes flicked to the key. You remember this? Bumpy asked. The trusted man nodded. His jaw tightened. Say it, Bumpy said. Safe deposit, the man whispered. And what's inside? The man's breath hitched. Names. Not money. Not guns. Names. The visitor stopped smiling. Just a flicker. He hit it fast. Too fast. This detail will matter soon. Bumpy turned back to the visitor. You brought him to sell me, Bumpy said. You didn't ask what he already sold. The visitor leaned back. The chair creaked. One sound. Pressure shifting. You bluffing, the visitor said. Bumpy shook his head once. No. The trusted man broke. I had to, he said. They promised. Bumpy raised a hand. The sentence died. Promise. Another mistake. Bumpy moved to the window. Outside, jazz from the bar below cut off mid-note. A door slammed. Silence climbed the walls. You think power's loud, Bumpy said, still facing the glass. It isn't. He turned back. Eyes calm. Voice lower. Power is what people already fear, he said. The visitor stood now. He wanted height back. You threatening me? Bumpy smiled. Not friendly. Not cruel. Final. No, Bumpy said. I'm explaining the schedule. The trusted man backed toward the door. He wanted to run. He couldn't. Reputation pins harder than bullets. Bumpy stepped aside. gave him a path. Go, Bumpy said. The trusted man froze. Moral loop opened. Mercy or trap? Go, Bumpy repeated. The man ran. The door slammed. Footsteps vanished down the stairs. The room breathed again. The visitor stared. Confusion crept in. He'd expected blood. Violence. Something he could price. That's it, he asked. Bumpy picked up the key. Closed his fist around it. Cold metal bit back. No, Bumpy said. That's the beginning. He leaned close enough for the visitor to smell nothing. No fear. No whiskey. Just certainty. You disrespected Harlem, Bumpy said. Quietly. The visitor swallowed. He didn't know why. Bumpy straightened his jacket. And quiet responses last longer. Outside, a car engine turned over. Someone was leaving too fast. This was the moment everyone would misunderstand. And that misunderstanding would destroy them. Harlem didn't run on noise. It ran on memory. In 1957, every block remembered something. A favor repaid. A debt ignored. A man who vanished after saying too much. Power here wasn't enforced daily. It was established once, then maintained through reputation. And Bumpy Johnson's reputation didn't come from violence. It came from what followed restraint. That was what the downtown bosses never understood. They saw Harlem as territory. Bumpy saw it as a system. Earlier that year, the city had started leaning south. New money flowed through Midtown. Old alliances were tightening. Italian families were consolidating schedules, calendars, unions. Harlem was supposed to fall in line. Quietly. Politely. Bumpy didn't object. That was the first warning sign. When men like Bumpy stop arguing, it means they're listening. Listening for something useful. The visitor from downtown, Vince Morello, had made his move thinking Harlem was distracted. He was wrong. Harlem was watching. Morello was respected below 96th Street. He ran numbers, docks, favors. He believed power meant reach. That if your hand could touch more places, you owned the board. What he underestimated was depth. Harlem had depth. Bumpy controlled it without appearing to. No flashy displays. No public threats. He let others speak for him. Bartenders. Porters. Preachers. Men who saw everything and said little. Morello never spoke to those men. That was his fatal mistake. The betrayal in the back room wasn't random. The trusted man, Eddie, had been leaning for months. Not because he hated Bumpy. Because he thought survival meant moving early. He'd been fed small truths. Promises of protection. A future where Harlem answered to someone else. Eddie didn't know about the key. He knew about the box. Not the contents. The safe deposit box had been built slowly. Not in one place. Names from police ledgers. Judges with habits. Union men with second families. Account numbers that didn't belong to the people using them. Bumpy didn't collect secrets to threaten. He collected them to understand who would panic first. This detail will matter soon. After Eddie ran, Morello made calls. Quiet ones. He wanted confirmation. He didn't get it. Phones rang longer than usual that night. Some weren't answered. Morello assumed that meant fear. It didn't. It meant delay. Back in Harlem, Bumpy walked. No car. Walking changes what you hear. Footsteps. Breathing. Who steps aside without being asked? Outside a corner club, a man nodded once. No words. One nod meant the message was already moving. That question carried power. It forced everyone to guess wrong. Morello spent the day convincing himself the meeting had gone his way. He told himself Bumpy blinked. That Eddie was proof. That Harlem would correct itself. Confidence can sound like certainty. It isn't. That afternoon, a delivery didn't arrive. Nothing dramatic. Just late. The driver apologized too much. Morello felt irritation. Not fear. Yet. At dinner, the wine tasted thin. He sent it back. Control, asserted in small ways. That night, he couldn't sleep. The silence bothered him. No sirens. No jazz drifting up. Just the sound of his own breathing. One dominant sound. Unearned quiet. He replayed the meeting. The key. The names. Names don't hurt unless they are spoken. Morello assumed Bumpy wouldn't dare. Harlem stayed in its lane because it had to. That assumption was the second mistake. Bumpy never planned to speak the names. Speaking names creates enemies who know they're exposed. Silence creates enemies who don't know where they stand. Across the city, Eddie ran. Not far. Just far enough to feel unsafe everywhere. He didn't know if Bumpy would forgive him. He only knew one thing. Morello hadn't called. That scared him more than anything else. Eddie didn't understand power. He thought it moved toward him. He didn't realize he was already inside it. That night, a man Eddie didn't recognize sat 2 stools away from him. Didn't look. Didn't speak. Just paid Eddie's tab when he left. No message. No threat. A reminder. By the end of the week, Morello realized something was wrong. Not because something happened, but because nothing did. No pushback. No violence. No noise. Harlem was waiting. And waiting favors the man who already knows the ending. Pressure doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it settles in quietly, like a weight you don't notice until you try to move. Morello felt it 3 days later. A union meeting ended early. No argument. No explanation. Men shook hands and left without finishing their drinks. That wasn't normal. Meetings ended when someone won or someone bled. This ended like a decision had already been made somewhere else. Morello asked questions. He received answers that sounded polite and meant nothing. Scheduling issue. Miscommunication. We'll circle back. Circling back is what people say when they've already circled you. Morello started reviewing his structure. Who owed him? Who needed him? He told himself this was routine. Just another correction. Harlem testing boundaries. But boundaries push back when crossed. At the same time, Bumpy didn't move publicly. He stayed visible. Too visible. Walking the same routes. Sitting in the same seats. Letting himself be seen. That visibility wasn't confidence. It was bait. Bumpy understood something Morello didn't. Men panic when threats feel close. They unravel when threats feel distant but inevitable. He began with family. Not by touching them. By protecting them. Morello's cousin ran numbers near the river. One night, a dispute broke out between 2 crews. It should have ended badly. It didn't. A third group stepped in. Calm. Organized. They separated everyone. Paid for damages. Walked away. No names exchanged. The cousin went home unsettled. He told his wife. His wife told Morello. Harlem men, she said. Morello dismissed it. Too quickly. Coincidence. But coincidence repeating becomes pattern. Across town, Eddie tried to disappear. He changed rooms. Changed clothes. He stopped drinking. He slept in chairs, not beds. Beds make you feel settled. One afternoon, a package waited outside his door. No note. Inside, a photograph. Eddie holding the key. Years ago. Laughing. Taste of metal rose in his mouth. Fear. Singular. Enough. He understood then. Bumpy hadn't spared him. He'd repositioned him. Eddie wasn't a loose end. He was leverage that didn't need pulling. Morello's night shortened. He began calling men he hadn't spoken to in years. Old favors. Old debts. Some answered. Some didn't. Those who answered spoke carefully. You might want to slow down. That sentence mattered. Morello bristled. Slow down from what? Silence answered. That silence was Harlem's voice. Bumpy spent those days listening. Not to gossip. To absence. Who stopped calling? Who stopped showing? Absence reveals allegiance faster than loyalty ever does. He met with a preacher one evening. No business discussed. Just a walk. The preacher mentioned a judge who'd been restless. Bumpy nodded. This detail will matter soon. Morello finally decided to force clarity. He sent word asking for another meeting. Neutral ground. Downtown this time. He wanted control of the room. The reply came fast. Soon. One word. No date. Morello hated that. Time was power, and he didn't have it. That night, he poured himself a drink. The burn was sharper than usual. He hadn't eaten. His hand shook. Just once. He thought about violence. He dismissed it. Violence would wake people up. He needed them asleep. That was his third mistake. Bumpy didn't need people asleep. He needed them aware. The plan wasn't to crush Morello. It was to expose the space around him. To let everyone see where his reach ended. Harlem wasn't closing in. It was stepping back. And when the floor drops away, even confident men reach for something that isn't there. Morello stood at his window, looking north. Lights flickered. Life continued. He told himself he was still in control. Across the city, Bumpy sat at a small table, turning the key once in his fingers. Just once. Cold metal. Memory. Nobody knew he'd planned for this. Not even Eddie. And especially not Morello. The meeting happened on a Tuesday. Midday. No drama in the timing. Neutral ground meant a private dining room above a closed restaurant on 110th. Not Harlem. Not downtown. In-between places make men believe they're equal. Morello arrived first. That was deliberate. He wanted the room before anyone else could shape it. He checked the corners. The door. The single window. He chose the chair with his back to the wall. Control, rehearsed. When Bumpy arrived, he was alone. No entourage. No pause at the door. He walked in like he already owned the memory of the place. Morello noticed the smell first. Cigars, faint but steady. Not aggressive. Settled. They didn't shake hands. They Saturday. For a long moment, no one spoke. Silence was the weapon now. Whoever broke it would reveal need. Morello lost first. You've made your point, he said. Bumpy looked at the table. One scratch near the edge. Old. Ignored. I haven't started, Bumpy said. 9 words. Calm. Unmoved. Morello leaned forward. You let a man betray you and walk away. That's weakness. Bumpy raised his eyes. You brought a man to sell me, he said. That's impatience. Morello smiled tightly. You think this city fears you more than it needs us? That was the question. The power loop. Bumpy reached into his jacket. Morello's hand moved an inch. Stopped. No gun came out. Bumpy placed a thin envelope on the table. Didn't slide it. Just placed it. Open it, Bumpy said. Morello didn't touch it. He'd learned enough to hesitate. What's this? He asked. Tuesday, Bumpy said. Confusion crossed Morello's face. He opened the envelope. Inside, a single typed page. No letterhead. No signatures. Just a list. Times. Locations. Names. Morello's throat tightened. He recognized 3 immediately. A judge. A dock supervisor. A union treasurer. The room didn't change. But Morello did. This is fake, he said. Bumpy nodded. Some of it. That answer landed harder than certainty. Morello looked up. What do you want? Bumpy leaned back. The chair didn't make a sound. Control maintained. I want Harlem left alone, Bumpy said. No schedules. No visits. No corrections. Morello laughed once. Too loud. The sound echoed badly. You can't enforce that, he said. Bumpy didn't argue. He stood. This detail will matter soon. He walked to the window. Looked out. Didn't point. Do you know why I let Eddie go? Bumpy asked. Morello stayed silent. Because men who run, Bumpy said, tell the truth faster than men who stay. Bumpy turned back. Eddie told me who you trusted. Who you didn't. Who you plan to use next. Morello felt the room tilt. Not physically. Strategically. You think this is blackmail, Bumpy continued. It isn't. He picked up the envelope. Tapped it once. This is insurance, Bumpy said. For you. Morello frowned. For me? Yes, Bumpy said. Because I won't use it. The twist landed. Morello stared. Then why show me? Bumpy's eyes held him. No blink. So you know who else already has copies. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of math. Morello pictured the preacher. The union men. The pauses. The missing calls. Power flipped without a sound. You spread this, Morello said. Bumpy shook his head. I let it exist. Morello's hand shook now. Touch. One dominant sense. Loss of control. You ruin me if this moves, Morello said. Bumpy corrected him. You ruin yourself if it does. They stood there. One man exposed. One man untouched. Morello finally nodded. Slow. Careful. Defeated without admitting it. Harlem stays independent, he said. Yes, Bumpy said. And Eddie? Bumpy smiled faintly. Eddie already paid. Morello understood then. Eddie would never be trusted again. Anywhere. A living warning. Bumpy turned to leave. This isn't over, Morello said. Bumpy paused at the door. Just long enough. It is, he said. You just haven't finished understanding why. He left. Morello stayed seated. Alone. Listening to the sound of his own breathing. For the first time, he realized something terrifying. No one had threatened him. And yet, he'd lost everything that mattered. Nothing happened the next day. That was the punishment. No retaliation. No whispers that could be traced. No sudden violence to warn the reckless. Just an absence that pressed on the city like humidity before a storm. In the underworld, action creates enemies. Stillness creates doubt. Morello woke early. He didn't check the paper. He checked his phone. No missed calls. That was wrong. Someone always needed something. He dressed carefully. Slower than usual. Control through ritual. At breakfast, a man 2 tables over stopped talking when Morello looked up. Not fear. Calculation. The man didn't know which version of Morello still existed. That uncertainty spread faster than rumors ever could. Down at the docks, shipments moved, but with adjustments. Nothing obvious. Just different hands signing. Different eyes watching. A dock supervisor Morello trusted asked for clarification that shouldn't have been necessary. Just covering myself, the man said. Covering yourself is what you do when someone else is exposed. Morello didn't confront anyone. Confrontation would confirm weakness. He stayed visible. Sat in familiar places. Spoke confidently. But confidence without reinforcement sounds hollow. Across Harlem, the reaction was quieter. Men nodded a little deeper. Conversations paused when Bumpy entered, then resumed naturally. No applause. Respect doesn't announce itself. Someone asked him if things were settled. Bumpy answered, "They're understood." 1 sentence. Enough. Eddie drifted. He wasn't hunted. He wasn't welcomed. Every door opened just wide enough to refuse him. Shame is heavier than fear. It follows you. He tried calling Morello once. No answer. That silence told him who'd won. By the end of the week, downtown adjusted its language. Schedules became suggestions. Visits became coordinated. Harlem wasn't challenged. It was avoided. Avoidance is acknowledgement. Morello felt it everywhere. In the way men checked with someone else before agreeing. In the way jokes stopped when he entered rooms. No one insulted him. That would have been mercy. He poured a drink one night and didn't finish it. The taste turned bitter halfway down. Lost changes flavor. He thought about Eddie. About the envelope. About copies he'd never see. Power doesn't disappear. It relocates. And everyone knew where it had gone. One evening, a young captain from another family asked Morello a question meant to sound casual. "You ever deal with Harlem directly?" Morello held his gaze. "Why?" The captain smiled. "Just curious." Curiosity follows power. Morello realized then the damage wasn't operational. It was reputational. Men no longer feared crossing him. They feared misjudging Bumpy. That fear protected Harlem better than any gun ever could. Bumpy heard about the captain's question the next morning. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. The city had learned the lesson for him. By Friday, Morello stopped making calls. He started receiving fewer. He hadn't lost his empire. He'd lost its momentum. Momentum is everything. Harlem stayed calm. Jazz played. Stores opened. Life continued. That calm carried a warning. Because everyone knew, if this was Bumpy's quiet response to disrespect, no one wanted to see the loud one. Years later, men would argue about what really happened. Some said Bumpy threatened war. He didn't. Some said he paid Morello off. He didn't. Some said bodies were buried. None were. The truth was simpler, and harder to accept. Bumpy Johnson never raised his voice. He never raised a gun. He let knowledge do the work violence usually does. The betrayal that night on Lenox Avenue ended without blood, but it rewrote Harlem's future. Eddie vanished into anonymity. Not protected. Not hunted. Just removed from relevance. In that world, that was the harshest sentence. Morello survived. That was intentional. Men who are destroyed become martyrs. Men who are spared become warnings. Downtown stopped sending messages north. Not because they were afraid of retaliation, but because they understood consequence. Harlem wasn't defended by muscle. It was defended by memory. The key stayed with Bumpy. The box stayed unopened. That was the point. The threat wasn't what he would do. It was what he chose not to. Power, real power, doesn't need to be exercised often. It just needs to be believed. Years later, a young hustler asked Bumpy how he kept Harlem independent when everyone else bent. Bumpy didn't answer right away. He let the silence sit. Silence teaches patience. Then he said one line. "Never show them the knife. Show them the table." That line stayed. Because men who see the knife prepare to fight. Men who see the table start counting seats. The downtown families adjusted their maps. Harlem remained marked, but never scheduled. Not because it was unreachable, but because it was understood. And understanding is the most expensive thing in that world. That's the part they never put in the papers. That's the part that made Bumpy Johnson dangerous. So ask yourself. When someone disrespects you, do you rush to answer, or do you let the city answer for you? If you think real power is loud, this story should make you uncomfortable. Like the video if you understand what silence can do. Comment below, is mercy stronger than revenge? Subscribe for the next story. Because if you think this was dangerous, wait till you hear what happened when he walked into a room unarmed.